Thank you, everyone. All right, my name is Laura LeBlue. I am a managing editor for thought leadership at ServiceNow, and I'm here with John Dougherty, who is the global, head of manufacturing for the Americas. And I just want to thank you all for coming to the session. I feel like we're the few, the proud, the manufacturing right now. Yes, own it. So we're going to be talking about something that might not be on the tip of every manufacturer's tongue, and that is the customer experience and why it's so important, what people need to think about. But before we dig into that, let me just ask you, what is the state of manufacturing today, given all of the global insanity and all the conversations we're having around supply chain? And I'd love to hear where you think we are.
Well, Laura, as anybody knows that picks the newspaper up or turns the TV on, well, from that perspective, and you hear all these crazy things about ships queuing up outside the port of Los Angeles, right? We went through that.
Yeah.
We had the Colonial Pipeline, so the 1-year anniversary of that last May. If anybody remembers that, what happened with that perspective. And now we're going through the baby formula shortage.
I know.
From that perspective. So, it's prevalent across the board, right? I mean, there's all the craziness, not only from the pandemic, but post-pandemic that everybody's dealing with, right?
It's true. It seems like it's rough, and it feels like, so we have that. What are some of the other issues that manufacturers are dealing with right now? I know we're talking about the workforce and.
It's everybody, probably no surprise to everybody. We call it the Great Resignation, right? Everybody's getting to a certain age frame, like myself. I'm 54 years old, even though I feel like 23 when I wake up during the day. But a lot of folks are getting to the point where, hey, they want to go do something else with their life's work, and we have that older workforce and this transition to the new workforce. And how do we make that transition very easy? Because we have someone that may have worked in manufacturing for 30, 40 years, and they know exactly when that machine breaks down, how to get it back up and running because, it's broken down over all those years. So how do we take that knowledge out of that person's head that's worked there for 30, 40 years and then impart it to a brand new employee from that perspective? So
that's really, it's fascinating because I know that, industries are dealing with that across the board, and to me it feels like there's, where they have an issue, the flip side is that there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's an opportunity to really dig in and kind of reinvent the technology, the underpinnings of manufacturing.
Yeah.
And we can do that at the same time that we bring in a new workforce. So it kind of changes the DNA, and you have a whole bunch of people who are digitally native in the workforce. Does that seem like an opportunity that is on the horizon for manufacturers?
Yeah, as everybody probably knows, Industry 4.0 is here. It's been here for a couple years now, and I think a lot of folks are struggling with the adoption of Industry 4.0. I did a session, believe it or not, about a month or so ago, and we just opened the session up with asking a very simple question. How do you define Industry 4.0?
Yeah.
And we went around the room, and everybody had a different definition of it.
Okay, so you have to tell me what was the spectrum?
Oh, it went everything from, it's the next industrial revolution to, it's just AI and machine learning focused from that perspective. So,
fascinating.
Very, very interesting.
Oh, it feels like we're at an inflection point here.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So, the bread and butter of this session is really all about customer experience and how manufacturers can create a customer experience that is delightful and relevant and, really helps to move the manufacturing industry forward. So, what do you think some of those, what's the foundation of creating that new and personalized and it's really delightful the customer experience?
Yeah, it's probably a lot of folks out in the audience know that it goes all the way back to the voice of the customer and building that voice of the customer into the products, and a lot of folks think that, hey, customer service is sort of customer service in a black box, but it's really prevalent across a lot of individual areas of the value chain. A lot of folks, what they're doing is they're taking that voice of the customer and moving it back through new product development. Apple's a great, example of that. When they design the products, it all starts with the why in mind of why are we selling this product versus the what or the how of the product. And that really starts with the genesis of what customers want out of the product from the very beginning, starting with that customer experience. How How are they going to utilize this product going forwards? How does it make a difference in their everyday life from that perspective?
And can you tell me how technology underpins like the beginning of that cycle? Because I know we're looking at this whole, the whole entire cycle of manufacturing. How do you take it from design all the way to getting it on shelves? And tell me about the technology that supports that.
That's a great question. I always boil it down, and as everybody can probably attest in the audience, there are 6 steps to every value chain.
Okay.
And it starts with new product development all the way through the service of the product, right? And what a lot of folks are looking at is they're looking at their individual strategies and they're picking one individual area of those 6 steps and saying, where are we going to make the most, where are we going to have the most benefit, the most value we're going to bring, whether it be new product development, maybe it's within production where we need to pick up operational efficiencies. Another key area, I know Bill talked about it earlier this morning, environmental, social, and governance.
Yes.
A big topic, right? Everybody, the big from a customer experience, everybody wants a product that, that company, they purchase off that company, they know that they're not harming the environment, their values match up with the customer's values. So, that's a big starting point from that perspective, whether it's new product development, manufacturing, ESG, how do we source better products? I mean, it's prevalent across the board. But the real focus around all that, the center of that is the customer experience.
Absolutely. That's fascinating. I'm curious about ESG and manufacturing. We'll have to save that for another session.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So going back to customer delight, I feel like that's something that people don't immediately associate with manufacturing. What does customer delight look like in the context of manufacturing?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
Surprise.
Yeah. I think I think you have to really go back to the core value of of the product that you're selling from that perspective. What do you stand for as a company, like from the perspective? What are you trying to impart upon your customers, or what have you learned from your customers over those various years of, from that perspective of designing the product or selling the product? What have you learned over all those years from that perspective?
Fascinating. So, as from your vantage point, like, what would you say to someone, one of our customers, a manufacturing customer who came to you right now and said, what are the 3 things I need to be doing to improve my processes, improve my customer experience? Do you have any, I'm just kind of curious about the conversations you're having with those customers today.
Yeah, I think a lot of those conversations around how can we not only service the customer better, and I think there's 2 facets to it, right? There is the upfront process of getting the order through the order management process, right? A lot of folks are moving towards like configurable products. Like a great example of this is the electric vehicle market. You're starting to see a lot of electric vehicle manufacturers, this whole thought process of moving away from showrooms and then having customers design the product, and those showrooms now become like service centers versus the old walk-in, test drive a vehicle. That's that sort of fundamental shift that we're seeing across the board in that area. So that perspective of is just, how do you make that fundamental switch along the lines of a lot of these processes very quickly and easily? Operational efficiency, better customer service upfront versus post-sale.
Right.
I think those are the key areas that folks are looking at.
How about even before the customer experience comes into it? How can you instill delight in the manufacturing from the very first step? I mean, we talked a little bit about being sure that it's customer focused, but maybe in the design, as from the very beginning, how do we bake in customer delight from that very first design conversation we have?
Yeah, I think everybody probably knows there's really 7 steps of the new product development, all the way from ideation to concept. And it's really, getting in touch with your customers and collecting through focus groups or, various individual areas of what are they saying about your product? Where do they want to see the product going? And then, baking that through the entire process.
Yeah, I did want, we talked about this before, and we got a few folks in here. I did want to open this up for anyone who might have questions for John about instilling customer delight within the manufacturing process, or whatever else you'd like to speak or ask, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm throwing you out there.
No,
I'm like,
that's okay.
Ask the man anything you want. Is there any manufacturing, hot topic manufacturing questions you have on your mind out there? All right, well, I thought I'd give it a try, but do we have
anybody?
someone? Anybody? All right, well.
Oh, we have one.
We do have one.
Thank you for being brave.
I know, we appreciate it.
Any sneak peek into the manufacturing specifics coming up in the Tokyo release? What you want to give? Or
Oh, I'm sorry, I was having a hard time hearing you. It was reverberating. One more time.
do you want to give us a sneak peek for any manufacturing specific solutions coming up in the upcoming new releases?
Oh, yes,
Tokyo.
yes.
Oh,
yes.
putting you on the spot
great
here.
question. Oh my God, it's one of my favorite topics. So I would tell you there are a couple areas that we're really focusing in on. One of the first areas is just our new supply chain optimization products. And please, walk around, talk to the various folks and find out what this means. But we're managing like the supplier life cycle, everything from onboarding to offboarding new suppliers. And let me tell you why this is very important. When you're going through these ESG initiatives, like there are vendors you've probably dealt with like 10, 15 years, you've had the same supplier for the same raw material across the board, right? Now with these ESG initiatives, everybody has to go through this new rationalization of bringing new suppliers on board. Raw material costs are through the roof, right? You know, from that perspective. So now you got to go through and do different sourcing activities. So this whole supplier lifecycle management piece has become huge. The other area that we're doing a lot of work in is just exception management. So like we were talking a little bit earlier, if you have a hiccup in your supply chain, you know, how do we deal with those exceptions and route them through the various ERP applications or across your silos, right? You might have different areas. So the onboarding piece, the exception management piece are two key areas that from the supply chain optimization. A couple other products I'll just mention. Operational technology management has been huge. Getting visibility to your operational assets. Where are they in production? What are they attached to? And then we talked a little bit earlier about connected workforce.
Yep.
That older workforce and making that transition from an older to a newer workforce. How do we digitize standard operating procedures? I've been doing this for 27 years, and you do not know how much paper I see still out on the manufacturing floor. It blows me away. You know, how do we, go from that to a digitized process across the board? So take a look at those pieces, and we have a great ESG strategy, like we talked about. I think those are the key pieces that you really should look at.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And this kind of, coming back to the workforce, and having paper on the floor and knowing that we need to be more digital and that we're going through this digital transformation process, and we have this issue with, talent resources being so minimal. Or what do you do? How do manufacturers attract a younger workforce? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, how do we feed that pipeline?
That's a great question. I was actually up in a conference up in Cleveland about 6 months ago, and believe it or not, the number one concern of manufacturers across the board was, how do we attract and retain talent across the board?
Right.
And there was some really ingenious solutions that came out of it. One of the most ingenious solutions were, one of these companies were going out to the local colleges for engineering talent, and they were saying to the students who may have been graduating, hey, come work for me, you can make your own schedule, you can actually study for your classes, use our resources to help you study for your classes and take your tests, So they were looking for ways to sort of retain that younger workforce and make it more attractive. It's all about the perks, right?
Right, and I wonder, like, if is there a mind shift? Do you have any conversations about? Because I know, I'm up there a little bit. So when I think of manufacturing, I have a very different vision of, I think, what manufacturing is today. Is there any of that, like, any of those conversations about talking, like, what does this new manufacturing? What does manufacturing 4.0 look like? That to help get the kids in, as it were. Like, yeah. It's really cutting edge, interesting technology, right?
Well, the one thing, to your point, a lot of folks are struggling with is, how do I, if I can't retain talent and I can't hire people, how do we now make that shift to automation? Yeah. How do we now have equipment that does the work where someone that may have been an individual that worked in production. And how do those two worlds interact very easily? Because you don't want to give the impression that, hey, we're pushing people out the door that we valued for all these years,
right,
and we're going to replace you with a piece of equipment that can do the job quickly, better, faster, better, faster, more efficient along those lines.
Right. So the technology itself can be the sexy thing that brings in a new workforce.
Yeah. But to tie this back to your point about the customer service point.
Yes.
I'm going to remodel my kitchen and dining room, and anybody that's done anything along those lines, the lead times are astronomical right now to purchase anything, right? So from a customer service perspective, how do you retain those customers and keep that revenue versus me as a customer that are trying to buy brand new cabinets going somewhere else that someone can get those to me in 2 months versus 4 months. So it's this huge, like, how do we go through this modernization to pick up efficiency but still balance that customer service so we're not losing that revenue.
Right, and it feels like there's a communication aspect there, like how do you communicate out? How do you create those customer experiences that are more proactive and more tailored to the customer you're working with, right?
Yeah, because if your lead time slip, for no uncertain reason, how do you let the customer know,
exactly,
hey, we apologize to you because we originally thought it was going to be 2 weeks. This is now changed to 4 weeks. And how do you sort of interact with those customers very quickly and easily and let them know why your lead times have changed? Me as a consumer, I don't mind that, hey, the time frame may change, but tell me why it's going to change. Like, what's the reasoning behind it versus just not calling me back or notifying me why you've now gone from 2 weeks to 4 weeks on any sort of product I buy, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, and it's the workflow revolution, right? How do we do that very quickly and easily? Because a lot of folks have customer service departments that are just overwhelmed with, from that perspective, how do we make their lives a lot easier and take those mundane tasks and automate those tasks? That's another piece of the automation.
And that's what we do here.
That's what we do. Yeah, so hopefully everybody agrees.
Wonderful. Well, we have a few minutes left. Do you want to, any topic that you want to cover that people might be interested before we head off stage?
I want to impart upon everybody thinks of ServiceNow as an IT ticketing platform, right? That's our bread and butter all these years. Give us a chance. We're making some great inroads in the manufacturing and supply chain. We're coming out with some fantastic products you're going to see over the next couple of releases. And we're going to make a big difference. We mentioned the supply chain products.
Right.
We're working on customer service optimization, order to quote, those processes. You're going to see some fantastic stuff coming from us in the next couple of releases. So hang in there with us and really ask us some great questions and give it a try.
Great. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
I think it was a great place.
All right. Well, thank you, John, and thank you so much for everyone for joining us. We
Thank
really
you, everyone.
appreciate it. We'll be over here if you have any questions or want to talk further. Thank you.